Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap Who's Number 128, headlined by Mica Galvão versus Jonnatas Gracie. We are also going to talk a little bit about the UFC BJJ Road to the Title event that started just today, actually.
Yeah.
The day of recording here, Monday, June 16th, 2025. So we'll talk about that, talk about the contracts, that whole situation. Also going to touch on the main event for a fight to win Detroit, Max Hansen and David Garmo, and touch a little bit on Polaris. It's happening in 2 weeks. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host.
Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Let's see. We have a bunch of stuff going on this week.
Yeah.
We have Who's Number One. We previewed it. I think it is probably the most wrong we've been in a while on a couple of those matchups. So
Really?
it'll be interesting to kind of talk through some of the dynamics, why we got stuff wrong, and kind of what we learned about some of the athletes. Because I think it was a very, it was almost like a benchmarking card of like, not like a changing of the guard, but just like, this is, people have improved in ways that I had not expected on the card.
Sense.
It was a more oddly matched up event card than Flo usually puts on. So it'll be interesting to kind of run through that. But be first in news, some news for CJI as we all kind of scramble to figure out flights and hotels and exactly how we're gonna go do it. Helena Kravar got announced for the first women's CJI bracket.
Yes, she did.
So you put this on news this week. I don't know a whole lot about this. I know that we now have basically CGI 2 is going to be a quintet style event where a bunch of different teams are fielded and they go against each other in the quintet format. So they're also doing a women's bracket now. Is it a 4-person? Is it an 8-person? Do we know?
4-women bracket for $100,000.
Okay. And I think they've hinted potentially at Fionn being in that.
Yeah.
As well was kind of what I've seen kind of hinted at, because Fionn was, I think, one of the driving people kind of pushing for that.
Well, and I know they on Who's Number One, when Paige won, she made a comment about
Paige Yvette.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Paige Clymer.
Yeah, but Yvette is her middle name. Her last name is actually something completely different.
Clymer.
It's like, no, but before then it was something else. It's like Yvette's her middle name. It's like Paige
Really?
Yvette. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Because I always see the full name and I'm like, huh? But she made a comment about how they should get some of the bigger women on that in the bracket because they all do absolute anyway. Because she's like in the larger end of
her match was at heavyweight. I think I forgot exactly the weight class it was in, but it was women's heavyweight.
She's actually, I think it was like middle.
Okay.
There was a weight disparity between her and her opponent by like maybe 20 pounds. Because I want to say her opponent was like a 150 and she was like a 170. Okay. But when it comes to like female grappling,
Adele Fornerino is the ADCC absolute champion.
But no one realizes that for like women's jiu-jitsu, like once you hit like 160, you're almost considered a heavyweight.
You are in heavyweight, yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a weird...
You have that problem now.
I have that problem now because I can't stop eating because I'm old and I like to eat. So, yeah, I'm a heavyweight.
You're now fighting heavyweight.
Yeah, and it's like, it's ridiculous, but that's besides the point. But she made a comment about how... I don't recall them saying what weight the women's bracket was going to be at, but I think she just made a general comment about wanting to see someone who's a little bit
make it absolute,
bigger.
bro.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting. Again, I'm super happy with the bracketing and what CGI looks like so far. But now again, we have Kravar announced as the first woman in the bracket.
Boras. So it's Paige Yvette Boris.
Paige Clymer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. That was cool news this week. Again, I love women getting the showcase. We're talking about Polaris squads, which is going to be a Team North America versus Team Europe.
Yep.
And it is headlined by Fionn versus Kravar. So again, we have two of the top ladies in the sport kicking it off. We're finally seeing more and more women headlining cards, which was uncommon until a couple of years ago. So,
and if you have a lot
super
of
jazzed
extra free time on your hands, there was also a big like wrestling tournament over the weekend that I find was super exciting.
Final X?
Yeah, I watched Final X.
Was it good?
It was fun.
I have not seen anything
from
it yet.
I had a good time watching it. Anyway.
How did Amit do?
What?
How did Micah's girlfriend do?
She didn't. I don't think she had to compete. I don't think she was. She might have been. I didn't.
She was on the poster. I saw her on the poster,
So
and I was like,
she might have
she's gonna
been
be on it.
So that was all like the World Championships finals, and in certain brackets,
Because she's the Olympic gold medalist.
they
were
just
like,
don't.
you're
No,
good.
I think like your number 2 and number 3 just are like, fuck it, I don't care or something.
Oh,
like
they're
that.
giving.
I don't.
They're giving buys.
There's some buys that happened, and I don't really understand that.
Welcome to
I'm
this
not-
week on the Grappling. Ryan doesn't understand wrestling.
Yeah,
comments.
I don't understand. Like, I watch enough to kind of get the gist of it, and I was trying to watch Kyle Snyder to see if he like shit the bed, but he didn't. He actually won. So
Phenomenal.
yeah, he looked great. A little extra angry this time around.
Yeah, if you're curious, look into his situation right now. It is interesting.
It's interesting.
For sure.
Anyway,
So
as we move on,
moving on, let's run through the UFC show because this is big news. Because we have a lot of is it allegedly exclusive contracts or absolutely exclusive
no, there's
contracts? They are
exclusive
known-
contracts.
Okay. So it has finally happened. The thing that we
And-
hate in jiu-jitsu has happened.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of guys now in exclusive contracts with the UFC, with Juan, with like whoever
Allegedly,
else.
if you are listening to Craig Jones and you believe what he says,
Which he's weirdly
Most
been
of the time-
very factual for
Yeah,
a
he
while
is.
now, and you're like, he's actually like a weird.
Yeah.
He's a source of insider information because he just doesn't give a shit. He's
Yeah.
like, what are you gonna do, sue me?
yeah. So he put out that like Andrew Tackett's contract is like 15,000 to show, 15,000 to win or submit. I guess not win. submit.
Which truthfully is more than you're gonna make in any other organization aside from
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
By far. Again, we've heard some back end on other organizations. You can kind of know what they pay because you're here long enough. You figure it out. You're not making 15 grand for most. Again, that's why ADCC show money being 10 grand for CJI was such a big deal because it was like, well,
because there's always backroom money, but like there
not
was
a lot
never
of guys are getting
on the
backroom money.
books
And that's not
yeah.
contract money. That's like backroom money, and that's
Yeah.
like you can't really rely on backroom money. And that's like, who are
Yeah.
you? Who you know? Who do you bring in? Contract money is very different. You're entitled to that for being there an athlete. And the UFC is good for that money.
Yeah.
They pay their athletes and pay their fighters. That's one thing that hasn't been a problem in 20 years for the UFC is that. So
No, they might underpay people.
I mean, they may underpay a lot, but for grappling, honestly, that is a lot of money for a grappling match or for a tournament for a
especially
season.
when you have a match that's a minute and a half long.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. We got to go through the whole event recap for it first. Okay, so the UFC is putting a bunch of money into grappling. It is free on YouTube. You can watch it. It's basically like the Ultimate Fighter kind of show because
Yeah.
the UFC is very good at producing that kind of show. You have a bunch of fighters. You have 2 different weight classes. You have welterweight and you have lightweight. You have 8 people in lightweight. You have 8 people in welterweight. You have 2 team captains. You have Team Mikey Musumeci and you have Team Harrison Gabriel. Is that the correct pronunciation of his first name?
It's actually spelled like Rerrison, but every single time I heard anybody say it, it
Harrison.
sounded like Harrison.
It's Rarison, but it's
Yeah.
Harrison because he's Portuguese.
Yeah.
Or Brazilian. Okay.
That's why it says Harrison, because I knew if I did the R's, we would get
I
confused.
appreciate you in the notes, Miranda, writing it as Harrison. You started it as Harrison Gabriel. I was like, I figure that you've done that for my benefit.
Yeah, no, it's for my benefit too, because my brain doesn't work that way
So
sometimes.
Josh and I talked about it very briefly last week. The first episode of the show has come out now. Mikey Musumeci's team has 4 welterweights and 4 lightweights. Harrison, again, has the same thing. At the end of the season, Mikey Musumeci and Harrison Gabriel are going to have a match versus each other. And Josh and I kind of went about last week, like, I wasn't really familiar with Harrison Gabriel. Miranda and I looked him up this week and have looked through some stuff. And he beat Pato. He beat Baby Shark, primarily a gi competitor. He won gi pans this last year.
I don't think he went against Pat. I think it was Baby Shark. For whatever reason, I get the 2 of them confused. I don't really know why, but my brain
thought he
confuses. Did he beat both of them?
But we put up the BJJ Heroes and came through, but again, 2 very notable. Those
thought
are
it
the
was
2
Keanu.
biggest wins that he has
Keanu.
He beat him too,
the AOJ
as
guy.
well. But again, a very kind of younger up and comer pan champion versus Mikey Musumeci. So it's like, okay, there's a level there, and we were kind of thinking about. I kind of internally all last week and this week have been talking about like the level that you put Mikey Musumeci up against. We've been kind of like, why did they choose Harrison Gabriel? Because like he's very, very good. World level, obviously. You don't win pans in the gi at adult black belt beating Baby Shark if you're not phenomenally good.
Yeah.
but doesn't have like the depth of the resume that Mikey Musumeci has. And it was kind of like, okay, well, you want to give your like longstanding champion, your one champion, your IBJJF world champion,
Yeah.
like why kind of give him a newer, younger, less experienced, seasoned guy? And you have a bullet point here in our notes, which is exclusive contracts.
Yeah.
We're kind of guessing, and you know, there's a lot of guys you could have gotten that maybe aren't on the level that you would want.
They also talked on the Simple Man podcast recently about the fact that there's exclusive contracts. So certain people were supposed to be on the show, and then at the last minute,
contract signing,
like pulled out because they realized that it was going to.
You can't do CGI now.
Well, and they allegedly were taking a very long time to set up scheduling and flights and all that.
And they were like, "Hey man, I gotta fight other people."
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
So it's you're in a weird exclusive contract thing, but that's kind of what we've guessed was the big driver between why you would pick a relatively unknown, newer adult black belt. Again, has credentialing.
Yeah.
Like you have good wins, but you just don't have that depth of career that Mikey Musumeci has. And our guess is because you probably couldn't find a lot of other guys to lock down into an potentially medium length exclusive contract. Because is it one match? Is it a season? Is it a year? Is it a 2 year? Is it a 5 fight? Like we have no idea. UFC is very, very strict with its contracts. You can go look up for some of the court proceedings and findings, like Eddie Alvarez's old contract and Mark Hunt's. You can find some other contracts out there, but those are the old contracts from like 2 contract cycles ago for MMA.
Yeah.
Before the Endeavor, before TKO. Like those are the old contracts. The new ones for grappling, we just haven't seen them. We don't know yet. And so that's kind of our guess is why they went with Harrison Gabriel, is because he was a guy that was credentialed enough, willing to sign some probably medium length exclusive contract, and is actually someone that could potentially contend with Mikey Musumeci.
And if you think about it, if he's a gi competitor, he could still do the gi for IBJJF.
Are we sure?
I don't
Do we know that?
But that's how ONE FC used to set them. Because remember
ONE FC would let you do other stuff, though. They let Cade and them do CGI.
Yeah.
Like, ONE FC was pretty strict with his contracts, but for the guys they liked, they would kind of let them do other stuff now and again.
That's the question. Maybe I made that assumption that gi, but I would make the assumption that there would have to be a clause in there that
doing
says
a different sport.
Because you are doing a different sport.
Yeah, it's like gi versus no gi, but they're both technically grappling. Yeah. Like the UFC doesn't go let its fighters go take kickboxing matches, but usually they can do grappling matches with permission. Has always been kind of the rule. If you're under a grappling contract, well, that's probably a grappling contract. That might be an all-encompassing competition contract for them. Like we just don't know. We're speculating and guessing. It is a new octagon pit format. Looks pretty similar to the CGI pit, except it is an octagon, but it is rounded like we're in Yama pit fighting from the early mid-90s, 2000s.
Okay.
Craig made a funny post that was basically that he has the IP and the copyright on a walled pit grappling design, which he may absolutely have. The problem is that the pit design has been done before, so I think, again, I'm not really a U.S. copyright lawyer.
They have that one event. They have an event up in Oregon that's happening. It might be this weekend that Pat Downey is doing. That's like pit submission or pit.
You can do events in pits.
Something.
There are other places that you pits, but it was just a funny post from Craig that he technically does have the copyright of the patent for that.
Well, it was also they also like stole his like 3 5-minute rounds and a 10 must score system.
I mean, that's just every combat system ever.
Yeah. He chalks it up like because they show his interview and then they show the Claudia Galhena interview and they showed the two of them talking about it. And he's like, yeah, we stole this from them. And she's like, oh, we came up with this new idea on all of our, on our own and everything. It's
whatever. It just makes me laugh. There's not that many rule sets in grappling. This is the newest one. So let's talk about the teams. And then let's talk about the matchup between Andrew Tackett and Harrison Wilson. Team Mikey Musumeci. So the way they did these, and Miranda, your notes are phenomenal for this, is basically you selected a guy at a weight class, and then you were given the low seed in the opposite weight class. Nope.
No.
So walk me through it.
So I didn't explain it completely. So Harrison went first. And he picked his first person. He picked Andrew Tackett first.
Good pick.
So Mikey Musumeci was given, because Andrew Tackett was considered the number 1 welterweight, Mikey Musumeci was given the number 8 welterweight because they're on either sides of the same weight. Okay, I thought you meant like the other weight.
Oh, I think I might have misspoke.
But
about that. Yeah.
They kind of crossed them, and then Mikey picked his next person, and his first person he picked was Isaac Doederlein, who was the lightweight number 8.
Which made no sense to me personally, given he is.
And that might not have been because I thought they did welterweight, all of welterweight first, and then. But anyway, however they did it, the one would pick, and then the other one would get the cross. And for whatever reason, Mikey seemed to like his dark horses, which I love my dark horses.
Yeah.
But he seemed to pick a lot of dark horses.
Mikey's team consists of Aaron Wilson, who was, I'm going to go basically just, welterweight 8, Carlos Henrique, lightweight 4, Isaac Doederlein, lightweight 8, Jason Nolf, welterweight 5, Nathan Haddad, welterweight 7, David Asari, welterweight 3, Dylan Moreno, lightweight 3, Cayenne Gonzalez, lightweight 7. Team Harrison Gabriel is Andrew Tackett, welterweight 1, Andy Varela, welterweight 2, Keith Krikorian, lightweight 1, Marco Rios, lightweight 6, Johnny Grippo, lightweight 5, Elijah Carlton, welterweight 4, Austin Ordinario, welterweight 6, Josh Cisneros, lightweight 2. On paper there, you can see that Harrison Gabriel got the much, much stronger team, and it was just really interesting to see how that kind of shook out overall. So the first episode was Aaron Wilson, the 8th welterweight, versus Andrew Tackett, the number 1 welterweight. And Andrew Tackett, after about 1.5 exchanges, gets out of a startup for an inverted triangle, pulls up to the side of the pit, and then does a really neat jumping back take in which he is able to trap both of Aaron Wilson's arms in the same back take sequence, which really wild. Go back and watch how he does it because it's free on YouTube. You can see this on YouTube. The way that Andrew Tackett is able to do this, it is a pleasure to watch Andrew Tackett compete. I hope he's making more than 15-15 because the dude deserves it. Nobody else can do a jumping back take off of the pit wall where you're able to trap both arms.
And
then he finishes a renegade choke.
The only other person I can think that does really good jumping back takes is Roberto.
Roberto has a good jumping back take. He could do it as well.
You saw the Roberto when we hit news number 1. They said Roberto has a main event for that, or at least he has a high ranked match on there. And just so we a little context information, Mikey Musumeci's team, Danilo Moreira is the boyfriend
of Elizabeth
Clay. Okay. Yeah. So there's a couple names that are like it's not that we've never heard of them. It's just they're not.
We don't talk about them on super fight contexts as much as other.
And they might for some of the higher level tournaments, they might be coming in like number 2, number 3, or like they're definitely up there.
They're in the mix. They're just not in the finals, which is the match we typically cover on the show. So very quickly, Andrew Tackett takes out Aaron Wilson because he's Andrew Tackett with a crush rear naked choke. Great finish. I'm curious to see how the rest of the season is going to go. Is it 1 episode a day or 1 episode a week?
It seems a day because the next one's coming out tomorrow.
Okay.
It seems like every day they're like 30 minutes, so they're not even long. It seems to be one match. It seems like they bracketed everybody and they're just going to run through the bracket, and that's the end of the show.
Huh.
And that might be 2 weeks because if you have 16 guys, 8 and 8, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. 8
so in theory, you have 2 8-man brackets.
Yeah, if you don't wear them on the weekends, potentially you got 2. Yeah. It seems like I like the format. I like that we're not going to stretch it out over like a 2-month period.
No, and they show them like fucking around the house a little bit, which is always hilarious.
It looks like tough.
Yeah.
It looks like tough. It looks like who's next. It looks like every reality show that's done this.
What's interesting is Johnny Grippo is technically under Kevin Gonzalez, or Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
That's who his coach is right now, and they're on separate teams.
That's funny. It's happened before.
Yeah.
And tough. I think Jens Pulver was. I'm missing the story. Joe Lozon was on Jens Pulver's team or opposite Jens Pulver, who he had beaten in a fight in the UFC. Or I'm gonna mix that up. But it's happened before on Tough, where it's like you were on the opposite person, a coach that you had beaten.
Yeah.
And it was like that's kind of a funny little crossover. Yeah, interesting kind of wrinkle there. Again, super strong season, very good, very good. I hope that all these guys finish up their contracts, make a lot of money, and then we don't see them only fight once or twice a year. But again, if you're making money, the push for this show, Grappling Rewind, has always been kind of to highlight promotions and athletes that are getting paid for professional grappling. So if this is, if exclusive contracts are the way for guys to get paid, I don't love it because we see guys fight less, but they're getting paid. That's always been the driver of the show.
Yeah.
Because when we started the show, there were very, very few opportunities for guys to make consistent money and income. A $5,000 tournament was pretty rare.
I also want to see what this does and how this affects PFL. Because these are a lot of the names, the big names of the
Carlton, Austin Renario, Andy Varella's in there.
So either
David Cesare was in there last time.
Either they're going to have to do another weight. Yeah.
Aaron Wilson was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is almost like the PFL just moved into an octagon.
But the PFL was also on Fight Pass last time.
It was.
As well. So they have that relationship. So it makes sense that you would, if you have those guys in the room, you can work with those guys.
Yeah.
You know that there's, it makes sense that you're in that feeder, you're in that hopper, that guys know you, the production staff knows you.
They know you're not going to be difficult, or you're going to be difficult enough that it's entertaining.
For certain folks, for
hopefully
sure.
Davis Asari has learned how not to eat a heel hook.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so. That was rough to watch PGF and watch him just like eat it and break it. So I hope, but yeah, that's the first episode. We'll continue to cover it. I don't know how we're going to cover it next week.
We'll just have to cover all the episodes. They're like 20 minutes each. Come on, you can do it in that. It's going to be an hour.
But we're just going to have to run. It's going to be this weird, hey, we've watched a week of TV. Let's talk about it. But
but a week isn't going to be that bad.
it's not going to be that bad.
It's going to be like an hour of content where Who's Number One was how many hours?
4.5.
Yeah.
4 hours, 21 minutes with a lot of dead time. So with that being said, let's move on to Who's Number One. Again, I love the event, this thing being 20 minutes.
And my whole thing is, the thing that kind of irritates me, flow. Why is it that you boot me out of your program, your app on the TV, boots me out, and then I go to log back in, and I have to watch a stupid commercial to get back into your system, and it's in the middle of a match. Because you booted me out in the middle of a match. Now I have to watch your 5-minute commercial to then turn back in.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, flow is... it is really funny to hear them talk so highly of CJI. I'm very curious with this new staffing changes.
It's think about it. The general manager is from Guardian. CJI is giving their money to Guardian.
Is that official yet?
Yeah. It's on all their stuff.
Oh, it's official now. Okay.
Yeah. It's on all their stuff.
I didn't know if it was official yet.
They're one of the
Guardian is recipient of the
Well, that there's partnerships with Guardian. So it makes sense.
I'm just happy that finally Flow is not pretending that nothing else exists outside of their broadcast sphere. It is refreshing, but it was funny how often it was brought up.
Yeah,
it was brought up repeatedly through this broadcast, and it was in a way that I thought was very, very interesting and uncharacteristic for the broadcast. It was also, it was a long broadcast. These things are oppressively long. They really need to be, for this many matches, these things really need to be about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But regardless, let's kick it off with the main card. Enough bitching on our end. Mica Galvão versus Jonnatas Gracie. He takes the 185-pound belt. He now has the 170 belt and the 185-pound belt, and he is coming for Pedro Marhino's 205-pound belt if they let him fight for that. That's a tough matchup, but honestly, I think it would be I don't think it would be that interesting of a matchup because I think Pedro Marhino tends to play a style on Who's Number One that isn't super interesting. Very, very tough to beat.
No, but it's very tough to beat.
Very tough to beat in the rule set, and that's the rule set that he contends in. He's the champion in. But I'm curious if Mica Galvão would be able to bring out an exciting match from him because again, 205 isn't that. Mika's weighed in fine at 185 here. Yeah. I think he will probably weigh about 190 for that match. Pedro's going to cut a little to be 205. Pedro doesn't walk that much larger than 205. No. So realistically, they're pretty close in size. I'm interested in that match.
Micah's a lot bigger than I expected.
He's really filled out a little bit in the last couple of years. Yeah. I think that he can obviously make 77 kilos again. Yeah. But I think that's going to be like a push to get him down to that weight. Now he's a couple years older.
Yeah.
So match. It was really sort of one-way traffic from Mica Galvão. He would force the pole, and then beautiful passing on display. One thing I loved about this match is we got to see Mica Galvão's timing in the way that he would pass Jonnatas Gracie. They were almost all counter passes. So he would wait for Jonnatas Gracie to try to move him, and then he would shift his hips. He would float over. He would knee cut. He would like cross step, or he would flop pass.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was almost every time Jonnatas would move, Mica would take the next spot, take the next spot, take the next spot. And it was Mica plays like a much smaller man fighting a much bigger guy. Because if you're
because he was.
Because yeah, but it is nice to see him kind of carry the weight and be now with size parity and still be able to pass and operate in this way where it's like, oh yeah, he's not going to try to force. Like, for instance, if we talk about him in this match, like the way that he body lock passes, a lot of the bigger guys, the heavier guys, the guy at 200, 205, 220 are going to body lock and are going to grind you down and grind you out. Mica is doing it in a way where he is waiting for you to regard. And then he is kind of hop step passing out of it. He's never.
He's like he's more tripod passing than body lock passing.
Yeah, he just happens to have his hands together when he's doing it. But it is less of a grindy, attritive style and more just super diligent and in front of your hips and in front of your hooks and on top of your shins. And it was just you can watch him do it throughout this entire match and force Jonnatas Gracie into a back take, force Jonnatas Gracie into the mount. Boom, he loops his legs together, cross mount passes to the mount position. It was like he mounted him in the first minute of the match.
It was pretty fast.
And that was indicative of where the match was going to go the entirety of the match. It was like Jonnatas Gracie had a couple of moments in the match that he started to get out of what Mica was doing. And then there was
a couple bolo attempts, but as soon as he would try to bolo, Mica would re-bolo him, and he was faster at it, and he could take his back from it.
Or he would just completely disengage. There was one almost like a double unders kind of position that Jonnatas kind of got to where Mica was he was half caught between trying to regard or trying to triangle. And Jonnatas just kind of capitalized on it, gets over, gets his hip, and Mica goes, nope, and then just tacks out completely, makes the space, and then they're back into the wrestling space. This was one-way traffic. There was no doubt in my mind that you give this to Mica Galvão when the decision goes. Again, it wasn't quite as exciting as I would have kind of wanted it to be, but Jonnatas Gracie was...
It's also a larger competitor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you have a smaller guy that's quicker and faster,
you have to play more defensively because if you open up, he's going to murder you for it. And so tactically, it makes I don't want to fault Jonnatas Gracie here. It makes sense he had to play like that. Sort of also the way sometimes we see Jonnatas Gracie play.
Jonnatas Gracie is also not stupid, so he's not just going to give his arm to Mica Galvão.
You don't become the champion who's number one in other organizations by playing a dumb game. He knows how to play in the rules, but he also knows what he has to do, and he knows how to game plan a style matchup. He needed an opportunity to reverse Mica, which he tried to do twice in the match and get on top and start imposing and hold him down. Mica knew that he could not really play for protracted pieces from the bottom.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to let Jonnatas Gracie put him on the bottom. He was unwilling to play guard with Jonnatas Gracie, which makes sense. Again, Jonnatas Gracie is a good passer. Yeah. He's a good guard player too, but he's a good passer. He plays a nice, heavy pressure game. He gets on top of you. He's like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Mica Galvão went, cool. Not the time to show off my guard game. I'm going to be on top, and I'm going to be the passer. I'm going to be the aggressor. I'm going to be looking for your back. And that's, we've seen him play guard before versus guys like J-Rod and Tackett. Not Tackett, J-Rod, PJ. We've seen him play guard before. We know he's willing to do it. But if he doesn't have to, it makes a lot of sense that he decided not to in this matchup. Yeah. Do you have any other kind of technical pieces you want to take away from it, or any kind of thoughts you have on the dynamics or the styles or anything else? I didn't learn a ton here about Mica's game other than he played a really thoughtful, good, well put together game.
Yeah, I would say that, and you could see as it got later in the rounds, he figured out more ways to actually get past. You could see him slowly learning certain things. Jonnatas is going to do this and then do this. He
learned the timing.
Yeah, he's going to grab. He's going to try to wrestle up when he gets to this point, and in his wrestle up, he grabs with this hand first or this, and then take advantage of those little things, which is, a very difficult thing to do in a pressure situation like that. Because
in a title fight, in the moment,
your coach is able to tell you these things, but you could see it was more of he was slowly learning what was happening to him and how to beat it as time went on.
Yeah, and just again continue to make the match.
Jonnatas Gracie, you almost have to kill him to like
man,
to put him out.
dude's
like,
tough to
you're
put
not
away.
you're not gonna put him out easy.
There was like one like kind of weird Darce roll through, and then
Yeah.
you looked at Mica was selling out for it.
Yeah.
And then but the problem was the camera angle we had,
Yeah.
you can very clearly see that he's like not really under the
Yeah.
neck. And I was like, man, I appreciate you selling out for it, because from a different camera angle,
Yeah.
it looks really close.
Yeah.
And then you see the hand position. I was like props to the showman,
Yeah.
knowing what it takes to win the
well,
match.
and to the judges.
But that's what I mean.
Judge
like,
sees it,
You play to the
you
judge.
know.
If that guy's like, yeah, that's good, and it looks like he's in.
Yeah.
And again, from the back of Mika's back there with the position of his arms,
Yeah.
it looks like he's in. And then you see the actual position of his forearm and hand across Jonnatas Gracie's like chin, and you're like, oh, that's not even
Yeah.
choking at all. Like a lesser grappler, yes, you absolutely will put away with that. They'll quit. Jonnatas Gracie is not. And the commentary kind of went, yeah, Jonnatas Gracie's probably not going to tap to that. I did appreciate the commentary kind of went, he's probably not going to tap to that.
Yeah.
He's not going to tap to that. But yeah, that was the match. Mika's the champion. I'm not super jazzed about the match with Pedro Marhino. Again, I respect Pedro Marhino as a champion. He knows how to win in the rule set. He just has had a couple of matches that have not been the most exciting in the rule set, and I really would love an ability to force kind of him to play more of his game and show off the skills that he does have. The guillotine game here from Pedro is interesting.
Yeah.
It'll limit a lot of Mika's offensive wrestling.
Yeah, but also if he collar ties too hard, Mike is going to take his arm.
He's gonna the arm drag was there
Yeah.
as well. The shuck by like
So the problem is like playing that heavy guillotine game might like just open up your arms to Micah.
it'll open up counterattacks. Again, I kind of I've said it before. I will probably say it again. Pedro Marhino is incredibly hard to beat in this rule set. Like, I would favor Mica Galvão in most rule sets versus Pedro Marhino. In the who's number one rule set, man, Pedro Marino's game is just built. There's no.
I went back on a really weird. Sometimes you go into YouTube,
rabbit hole?
Rabbit hole of YouTube and everything else of Pedro Marhino and on Sug.
Yep.
He got it was
Yeah.
a tag team match, and they did it was 15 seconds between you tagging you
Yep.
had to get out, and they timed it, and they just both jumped on him at the same time to take
Yep.
him out, and I was like, because I was trying to remember who it was that had.
I think he
that.
was a purple belt still or a new brown belt.
Yeah,
I think
it
it's
was,
Pedro.
I think he was a brown belt at the time.
Yeah, because Pedro Marhino won the qualifier at Kasai as a purple belt.
Yeah.
Because him and Juni Ocasio both won those earlier Kasai qualifiers
Yeah.
as purple belts. And then we were like, okay, these guys beat a bunch of black belts to get there.
Yeah.
They're really good. And then I remember seeing the matchups between Roberto and Pedro because they were in the same city in Texas, fighting constantly at purple, brown, and the black belt. And I was like, oh, yeah, so... Yeah, those earlier matches, it's kind of funny to have actual remembering guys before they got their black belt and what they looked like competitively.
Yeah.
Which is more common nowadays, but back then in those earlier days of the show, it was less common.
I just went on a weird side note just because I wanted to talk about my weird little random.
I'm excited to see
random
Mica
trip.
fight for another title. Once he gets this one, though, I would like to see him start defending some titles. But again, if you're going to keep getting the titles, you're not a double champion. Winning in convincing fashion like this, do what you want to do, man.
Yeah.
You're the champion. Next match, Kit Dale defeats Sanjay Ribeiro via decision. I'm sad a little bit. I like Kit Dale as well, so it's fine. But I'm more sad because I wanted to see more from Sanjay's game here. Kit Dale did what he did at CJI too, at the Giles trials, which is really good half guard passing, pressuring through, eventually forcing Sanjay to get back to the regard, and then being able to get by. And then Sanjay I timed it for one of the passes that Kit Dale hits. Not sure he would score in ADCC because Sanjay tries to go hook in, like a same side hook in to get the leg three, and then he goes to his hips, and there's not quite the control that Kit would necessarily have needed at ADCC to score that, but it's really close. I wouldn't be mad if Kit was scored a pass for the first big time he gets around. Sanjay continues to go to turtle to prevent it. Kit really can never take the back, and that sequence happens 2 to 3 times in the match.
It's over and over, which is really if you watch the Giles trials, this is basically what Kit Dale did to win those matches.
And that's kind of what Kit Dale does nowadays. And it's not a very submission heavy focused. He's not a submission guy. He's like a passer. He's a positional guy. He's very good. He's hard to tip over. He's hard to push over. And that is, it was a 50-minute match. That's what he did. Sanji at really no point ever was able to open up enough to do much else. So it was really just Kit Dale looking to pass, almost passing, looking for the back, not getting the back, going back to guard.
Well,
that was the match.
It might also be a situation where you realize you're not going to be able to hold on to the back. So you don't really want to overcommit to jumping.
And they get reversed, and now you're on the bottom, and
Yeah.
you have Sanji on top of you trying to pass. Sanji's going to pass.
Yeah, because some people are just really difficult to hold on to.
Sanji would, I think, be on that list of guys that you'd expect to be really difficult.
It could, he won.
Yeah.
You
Again, credit where credit's due, man. Kit Dale beat Sanji Ribeiro, which is, not many guys can say that. He's also he's not that much younger than Sanji, which I appreciated. I think they're 2 years apart or 1 year apart. I think Sanji's 41 or 40. Kit Dale's 39. I appreciate it. Was you beat a guy, who's also of the same kind of era that you were. And I really I appreciate that they didn't, it's not, I'm not commentating a match where Sanji loses to a guy that was 22. He's got 20 years on you. I was a little disappointed because I kind of want a little more of the Sanji of old. Even though I realized that he retired kind of for a reason, has come back because he can still contend. But the dude's been competing for 30 years now.
Yeah.
It's hard. The level of output is not going to be what it was 20 years ago in those highlight reels. And that's understandable. But, again, really, I'm talking about this in a weird way, taking nothing away from Kit Dale. He played the game that he plays, that we saw him play at the Giles Trials, which is his modern game, and it worked. Sanji wasn't able to get going, was unwilling to get going, to open himself up to more positional work from Dale, and he lost the decision. So, do you have anything else you want to
Nope.
You want to run through in the match? You looking for something?
Nope. No, I was looking for who they announced for Roberto Jimenez. And then I saw something and it was the wrong date, and I started going deep into my phone.
So
at who's number 128, they announced who's number 829, or at least the main event for it, which is going to be July 25th. One of the things said June 25th, and I was like, holy shit, that's coming up, but it's not. And it's going to be Ryan Aitken versus Roberto Jimenez.
Ooh, that's oddly an exciting matchup.
They want to see if Ryan Aitken can break Roberto's foot off, basically.
Dude, Aitken is a guy we slept on for a long time, and I didn't give him his due. And then
he's kind of funny.
He's kind of funny, but I think it was really funny. We slept on him for a long time, and then he won something, and then we went
PGF. He went
through his record, and we went. Ryan Aitken's beat a lot of good guys, kind of convincingly.
He's a little outspoken about things he shouldn't be outspoken about, which becomes a problem.
Yeah,
but he did on PFL his PGF, not
Professional
PFL.
Grappling League.
Yeah, PGF.
I think so.
He was freaking hilarious.
Man,
so
he's there again, multiple CGI champion. Again, that is a genuinely exciting match to preview versus him and Roberto.
And it's in Miami.
Yeah, that looks fun. Yeah. That was we're gonna go to CGI the following month, but I'm I might want to go to Miami. That was one of those where I went, that might be a really fun excuse to go down to Miami. Because it would be fun to go to Miami. I've never been to Miami. I've always wanted to go to Miami. It might be fun.
I've been to Miami. It's
middle of the summer Miami.
It's interesting.
My parents just moved to Florida, not close to Miami at all, but
no, but you can drive it.
Yeah,
the whole state's only 4 hours long. Maybe
no, it's way longer.
From Orlando,
I include the Keys, Miranda. They're part of the state too.
Orlando to Miami is not that long. It's maybe 3 hours tops.
Okay,
I think.
So moving on. We're getting to the travel section of the podcast.
Yeah.
Lucas Hulk Barbosa defeated Dory Arun via decision.
And Dory was a last minute replacement because it was supposed to be Philippe, wasn't it? Lucas Barbosa was.
We previewed Dory last week on the show, so I don't know who was prior to that.
It was.
But I think that was a new change. It was
the other Philippe.
Penna?
Yeah.
Andrew Silva?
It was Penna.
Okay.
Penna's hurt. Remember Penna got hurt when he was training.
Okay.
Because Penna was supposed to go against Luke Griffith. That was one of the original matches. And then that match failed. And then this match appeared.
Okay.
They said it was last minute. And, I mean, Dory is sort of local because he is, is he AOJ? He's one of those schools.
I think he's AOJ.
And then Lucas is Atos.
And Andre was there in his corner. Yeah. But again, Lucas is now, I think, in Oregon, isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't his gym in Oregon? It was cool to see Andre still in his corner. Hulk comes off a shoulder surgery a couple of months ago. He's kind of made the transition into MMA and kind of back out of MMA. We're kind of Hulk. I don't think we knew where his career was going to go.
Yeah.
And I think it seems from this interview now that he is sort of moving back into jiu-jitsu from just like, it seems like MMA. He's been fighting off and on for a little bit now.
Yeah.
But based on his post-fight interview, it seems like he's coming back into jiu-jitsu, which is cool. I like watching Hulk. A lot of this was on the feet, and then it was a couple of instances of really good front headlock control that Hulk turned into big pieces of other control.
Yeah.
But it really came off of like Dory getting a little, not overzealous, but like being unwilling to just continue to kind of hand fight on the feet and try to overextending himself, and then Hulk getting on the neck, getting on the front headlock as a result, and Hulk being able to take position off of that.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't a super exciting match.
Lucas is generally not the most exciting competitor.
No.
He's kind of
he's a very good counter fighter.
Yeah, but he's the type that like I will get on top of you. I will crush you. Mm-hmm. I will make you hate your life.
I'm going to slow you down. I'm going to get you there. And I'm going to have these bursts of offense, but he's not really a sustained offense fighter in the way that like Mica is.
That's why
a lot of the guys that we like contemporarily.
When he, what did he do to Joseph Chen?
He blew his knee out with a knee crush.
With the knee crush. When that happened, we were like, holy shit.
Yeah, because Chen was taking that match handedly. And then Hulk pulls it out.
He's generally not, like, he will get, a rear naked choke, darce, a guillotine.
He'll finish guys. He has good submission offense, but generally, like,
a slower pace match.
Much slower pace match. This kind of was that, and he takes it. It's nice to have Hulk back. It's nice to see he very much looks like he looked a couple of years ago.
But coming off of shoulder surgery, I can understand it.
Yeah, it's an understandable performance. I have nothing else on this match. Let's talk about Paige Yvette versus, give me your name, because they said it a bunch on the broadcast. Kayuni. Ramos came out guns a-blazing.
She did.
And then Paige Yvette very quickly went, no, and took control of the match early. You could tell in this match, Paige Yvette wanted to take Ramos into the leg locks.
Yeah.
That's where she wanted to go. That's where she was going to go. And that's inevitably what she finishes at the end. She gets a heel hook. Ramos was on like the second stage. You can just press the button.
I know.
It'll stop doing it.
I know. I will stop my sounds now. Sorry. As I go through things. Paige wanted to go into the feet. You could tell she wanted to go into her feet.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you saw Ramos doing like the really late stage defense, which is like, I'm gonna grab your hands.
Yeah.
And it just
not trying to clear your knee.
Yeah, it doesn't really work anymore at the super highest levels.
Not using your feet to battle with your feet, but using just grabbing the hands. Because I don't think I generally never grab the hands.
I grab the hands and like, oh shit, like when I'm deep and we're done, like that's my last option to do, because me pulling away, I'm not going to get it. And that's sort of where Yvette was able to put some match very quickly to kind of force Ramos into late stage. Like when I see someone grabbing the hands in a pro match, I always see as like the oh shit defense.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I do not have enough time to be able to clear a knee, to get out, to open, to make basically, as Vinny Magalhaes says, make the cross with the feet, and then turn. Well, because there was a study that basically when Gordon had the match with Vinny, somebody did like a match study on that ACBJJ match, and it was like, what is Vinny doing to not get his shit exploded?
Yeah.
And then Craig Jones figured it out. But it basically was it was showing the consistency that Vinny Magalhaes like deals with Gordon's entries, and it was like, oh, and he gets up, he builds this leg cross, he gets over, and it was like this very systematic way that he was consistently dealing with the way that Gordon Ryan entered, and he never was getting in, because that was still an era like 2018, 2019, where guys would still fight the hands, and Vinny just didn't need to do that because he was positionally getting out of the legs first. Since then, we've seen more and more people like. You only see the hand fight when it is, hey, that's my last option because I cannot make the space, because you have to get out of the leg lock or counter it.
Yeah.
And you can't do either of those things when you are grabbing the hands.
Yeah.
And so as a result, it's just not, at the pro levels, it's just not a consistently good defense that works for any length of time, unless you're at like the end of a match or you can disincentivize something or break a hand away and then get out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really work. And so because Yvette was so deep into the leg lock entries early, and she transitioned, she went to saddle, Ramos was forced to immediately go, okay, I can't clear my leg. I can't make the rollout to get out. I have to just go to fighting the hands. And you could see Yvette go, oh, cool, you have to fight my hands now. I just get to spend all of the time I want here adjusting and kind of figuring out how you want to move your feet so that later in the match, she could get ahead of Ramos's transitions and get a very clean heel hook like in a transition.
And pretty nasty heel hook.
Pretty nasty heel hook too. And then gave the kindest post-fight interview ever.
She's that kind of person. Like when I met her, she's like that. It's
yeah. My wife talked about meeting her, and she's so sweet. And it was like, that's something that I would love her to do another seminar with. But yeah, it was cool. It was just cool to have in a very macho sport, which is combat sports, and I like and dislike that about the sport. It was very refreshing to have Paige Yvette, be like, hey, man, we're all kind of in this together. We all train. We all do this. And I cannot progress my career without women like Ramos coming to face me and to fight me. And like, you need competitors.
And we saw Paige's last match with.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where she, she survived.
She did, which is
a feat. And she tried to get some action, moving. So she's definitely over the last couple years fixed some of the problems that she's had and gotten farther ahead.
Yvette has absolutely not turned her game around, but she was someone that was sort of always kind of on that cusp of you're in the mix with the really high level people, but you struggle with consistency.
But then she get guillotined in immediately or something like that.
And now we're just not seeing that. We're seeing a consistent level of improvement in her game, and she's ranked number 8 at women's heavyweight now, very high and deservedly high ranking. So again, I appreciate that she's even going to take someone on like Ramos, who's unranked. Yeah. This doesn't really move.
Well, she's a newer. Ramos
newer brown belt or newer black belt.
She's a newer black belt.
Yeah, brand new black belt this year.
She won worlds in the gi at brown.
Yeah.
So she's
and then she got DQ'd this year at black.
Yeah. It happens.
It does. It happens. Sometimes you slam a triangle. You thought we were an ADCC.
Yeah.
They didn't know you couldn't do that. But yeah, it was a great match. It was cool to see more of Yvette's game. Laser focused on countering the aggression from Ramos and then immediately pulling it into the legs where she knew she would have an advantage. And you saw a veteran depth of skill in the way that she was able to kind of fence her way into the feet, get her lock down Ramos from basically being able to spin out, and then get a really kind of nasty heel hook.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got Declan Moody defeats Felipe Andrew via another heel hook, another one.
Yeah.
I had someone. So one of the things I love, I'll go on a small tangent here, then we'll get back into this match. One of the things I love about this show, and a big driver for what we do in this show is twofold: to highlight professional grappling, and that's specifically events that pay grapplers to compete or to win. It's we want to focus on the professional side of it. What is supporting these athletes in competition, not just seminars and instructionals, but who's going to pay them to compete. That's what I want to focus on. That's what I want to talk about, because that's how you get higher and higher and better levels of competition. I also have always wanted the show to sort of be an on-ramp to, hey, you're a blue belt and you want to you now have enough understanding of grappling, but you want to understand professional grappling and get into it as an on-ramp. And from someone on the outside, just getting into the sport, it's really hard to have the context of who these people are, why this matchup is important, why it's interesting, what technique should I be taking away from this match. Unless you have people in your gym that you're getting together for watch parties and watching these things with people that are more experienced, it's really hard independently to be able to do that. And that's sort of one of the drivers for creating this show, years ago, was I want to give people that are interested in learning about professional grappling a weekly show to sort of follow along and begin to learn the ins and outs of these matchups and these athletes and why you should care and what the interesting storylines that kind of drive the sport forward are. And so I say all that because we have a buddy in the gym that's has been listening to the show for a couple of years and has got into professional grappling. And it was really funny. I overheard him talking about Felipe Andrew because he watched this match, and he's like, I don't know why you would go to 50-50 with Declan Moody. You're not good at it. And I was like, no, Felipe Andrew's actually, and it was funny because we haven't covered Felipe Andrew in a little bit here, and so he probably had missed all of the the years of Felipe Andrew.
Yeah, we covered him at CJI. But then he got suspended from IBJJF.
Right.
So there hasn't been.
But you missed like the Keenan triangles and the Hulk triangles, and like when he's Felipe Andrews, all his third coast grappling runs. Like if you're getting into the sport in the last couple of years, you'd missed all of that. And so in his eyes, it was very funny to hear him talk about like, I don't know why you'd go to 50-50 with Felipe Andrew. It's like, yeah, because with Declan Moody. And it's because Felipe Andrew is a phenomenal 50-50 player that has a bunch of super high-level and high-profile wins over the years from 50-50. It would honestly kind of have surprised me if he didn't decide to go to 50-50 with Declan.
Yeah.
And it was just even more impressive to have Declan be able to beat Felipe Andrew in 50-50.
Yeah.
It was just a very funny match. We have seen Felipe Andrew sometimes leave his feet out. Again, he did it versus Wagner.
Yeah.
He kind of left his foot out and got foot locked, but Felipe Andrew is a very good foot locker. He can get counter foot locked a lot like he does here.
Yeah.
But it was just very funny kind of thinking about that one comment that our buddy made. It just made me laugh of like, oh yeah, we've done this for a long time. I know the depth and I've watched the history of Felipe Andrew like develop and kind of have these matches, but they're years and years old. You wouldn't have the context of how good of a foot locker Felipe Andrew is if you've only watched him in the last like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And so he gets foot locked by Declan Moody. The foot sweep was dirty, and I kind of liked it.
You liked it?
I did, dude. I've been foot sweeping people a ton recently.
I hate being foot swept.
And I love watching it happen at the high levels because Kyle Chambers does it, or sorry, Victor Silveira does it. Who does it? Somebody else does it.
Declan Moody does.
There were like 2 or 3 of them on this card. And I've been doing that same foot sweep, and I love it so much because now I have the timing.
Yeah.
And I've been watching for it. You can hit it so frequently because people inevitably are going to step forward.
Did you, complete side note, did you see the foot sweep to the arms from main character?
I did see that. Yeah. Absolutely a DQ, by the way.
Is it?
It should be. Absolutely DQ.
But you
tie kicked him to the elbow.
You're standing on your arms like feet.
All right. Side note here. Main character Jiu-Jitsu had an event. I forget who's kicking Wagner.
It was Lima. It was Lyra. It was
Maggie's.
Yeah, it was Mr. Grandotti.
Yeah.
And it was versus Achilles.
Yeah.
And
so Achilles is in a wheelbarrow.
Well, first of all, the two of them allegedly had gone after each other.
They had beef.
They had some words.
They had Miami beef, as it will.
Some Miami beef.
And if you don't, so context and history, those two teams have some history between them all, and you can look into it more. It does not surprise me that Wagner and Fight Sports potentially would have the issue with Lyra and Grandotti, given the history. You can look into it if you would like to. So them having him beforehand doesn't surprise me. At one point, Achilles is up in a wheelbarrow with Lyra trying to kind of push him over. And
they're going out of bounds.
Mm-hmm. And Lyra, and this is the technique. You can do this technique and it is fine. There's an arm sweep, essentially what you do. You basically do a foot sweep. You kick the foot out, but you typically, for courtesy, and really in the rules, you sweep at the hand, at the wrist, and you sweep it off the mat because if you bounce off, you you're not going to hyperextend the guy's arm.
Yeah.
Lira kicks him right in the elbow, and it's very clearly a kick.
Yeah.
He sweeps him.
But it's kind of like how Josh does foot sweeps.
Yeah, these are kicks. Yeah. Because there's not like, unless the guy's arm buckles, you're not going to kick him over. And so it's at that point, it becomes, in my eyes, like in all the matches and things I've judged and refed, it's a kick because there's no chance that guy's going to fall over and your foot bounces off of it. So you kicked him.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. We're not doing a striking sport. There's a whole like, oh, is it legal? It's not like, if strikes are not allowed, then you kicked him and it's illegal.
Then
you get DQ'd.
you got to start calling when they do that to people's legs.
And you have to. You have to. And you should, for the collar ties, for that, like there are certain things.
The collar ties are fine.
Collar ties are okay if you're doing something with it. If you're just clubbing, and we're seeing a lot more guys just clubbing, it's like you're just hitting him. You're just backhand striking him in the head.
Yeah.
You're not actually using it as a collar tie to off balance him. You're just hitting him. You've got to call that more because guys aren't using it like wrestlers use it to club and to move.
No,
they're just clubbing at each other, and it becomes a pissing match.
Yeah.
So, tangent. I would appreciate if the sport got more on. Like, if you can strike, cool. That's totally fine. Like, if you can kick, if you can, write it in your rules. If you want to have it.
My whole thing is
foot kicks are allowed.
Don't go to your hands.
It's
wheelbarrow from your hands.
It's fine to do because you can roll through. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do there if the guy can't kick you. If the guy can kick you, like, well, there's some problems there, but you're doing a different sport at that point. We're just doing grappling. You can't kick. You can't punch. It frustrates me when you see that and you have a dialogue about like the legality of it. It's like, did you kick him? Yeah, you kicked him. You can't do that. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
I'm good now, Miranda.
Okay.
Declan Moody. Felipe Andrew, again, he pulls. He immediately goes into single leg X, comes outside.
He doesn't pull. Declan takes him down. He mat
Oh,
returns
yeah,
him.
sorry. Yeah.
He mat returns him. He foot sweeps him like you said. But he doesn't like full foot sweep him. He just gets to his back from it.
Yeah, he
goes to foot sweeps him and he like defends. He takes his back. He gets on his back. He mat returns him to the ground. And then Philippe comes around to get his guard back.
The entry was good.
And then goes into the legs.
Goes into single leg X, and then Declan kind of passes over. Felipe passes over into 50-50, and then Declan looks down and goes, a foot.
Yeah.
Something is, or the meme, something is a foot.
Yeah.
And then just rips down, gets the heel hook. Wasn't even like a rip. It was just he had better positioning on the hip line than Felipe Andrew had, and he had turned down. So he basically was scooping underneath, and Felipe Andrew had to scoop from the top to counter heel hook, and Declan gets the heel hook. There's not much more to break down there other than that. Like, it was just, it's a huge win for Declan.
Yeah, and the last, Declan's last performance for CGI qualifiers was a good performance too, where he had a lot of like the same kind of exchanges.
Yeah, he
with
won the
everybody.
Giles trials.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, like, a bunch of guys won it, but like the last round happened, and Lachlan was like, yeah, technically Declan can't lose.
Yeah.
Because you did the math and we're like, okay, he has 3 points. The next closest person has 1 point. So that means at most Declan can lose 1 point.
Yeah.
And the next closest guy will have 2 points, and Declan still wins this. Declan's phenomenal. It's been awesome to watch him like it better. Having a win over Felipe Andrew is a big win. Also, Felipe Andrew now at the Atos team.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big
No, AOJ.
What'd I say?
Atos.
Oh, I meant AOJ,
yeah,
not Atos.
he's AOJ.
It's still it's gonna take me years to unthread those two teams.
Well, because they were kind of.
No, they were too. They were part of the same team for a long time, and it just he's AOJ now. So yeah, big win for him. B team takes home another one. I'm excited to see where Declan goes and how he looks at CJI2.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me to have Declan have like a wild run at some upcoming event.
Okay.
He's just on a roll occasionally, unless he wants to like Felipe Pena. Just on a roll recently and has looked very, very good. He could be that new Australian gentleman.
Yes.
Last match, we had Kyle Chambers defeating Victor Silveiro via decision. Literally, Chambers cut like 20 pounds for this match to make the weight.
That makes sense of why he was so skinny.
And he also looked like he towered over Silveiro, which makes sense. I think Silveiro's been as low as like 145 as well.
Yeah. He did a lot of going into legs, like trying to think, K-guard into and I can't even think what it is.
He just was able to. He put up more offense.
Yeah.
Like he put up more offense. He was very clearly in the driver's seat. Severo was very clearly on the defensive.
False reap.
The false reap entry.
Yeah.
He had a really good false reap entry from the bottom early in the match. It was like a counter to Victor at one point. It was, again, this is the kind of match you got to put Kyle Chambers in, someone that's going to kind of play into his pacing.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a size and length advantage on. Like, this is where you start to see Kyle Chambers' game really work well. Severo, to his credit, man, was able to defend everything, but it was very clearly going Kyle Chambers' way. You need someone that is willing to play an outfighting game on Chambers.
Yeah.
If you have someone that plays a super heavy pressure game on Chambers, he really tends to struggle. But Victor Severo, like, again, styles make fights.
Yeah.
Stylistically isn't a super heavy pressure passer in the front. It makes sense that Chambers would be able to get to those entries, be able to get to the legs, and Severo would have the depth of experience to get out.
And Severo definitely defended, like, the first half of the match.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely was kind of holding him off for quite a while. But then I think Severo realized that he had to open up. He had to try
because he was down 2. He was down 2 rounds,
Yeah.
essentially. And it was like, okay,
You got to do something.
you got to do something.
Yeah.
And I think I did appreciate on commentary that they were like, even though he's down 2, doesn't mean that he's out of it. You can still, like, the whole match is judged as a whole.
Yeah.
Which is why I really don't like seeing that on the screen once they announce the favor.
Yeah, because
it makes it look like you won 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really confusing. So I appreciate the commentary getting in front of that. If for some reason, like, Severo was able to flip it, it would make sense, like, because the commentators explained how it looks. But from an optics perspective, it does look really weird to see, like, him up 2 rounds, but the other guy's still in it because it's not judged traditionally how it would be for a round format. I did like that Who's Number One had the time until next match.
Yeah.
I really wish that wasn't time until next commercial, because it was time until next match, and then the commercial would play.
Yeah.
That would end, and they would go to commercial, and it was like, guys, give me 5 minutes and then, like, run the commercial. But when that timer's done, come back to the action that I'm watching. The pacing on these is bad. It's remained bad. I really would love, like, these cards, even with the undercard, they don't need to be 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
It was just like, there's too much downtime. There's too much. You need to, if you're gonna run it, you run your match. I think 15-minute matches is a little bit long. I don't love the length of the matches. 10 minutes, you run your match, you do your walkout, you do your decision.
Yeah.
Immediately go to your commercial. Your commercial runs, immediately next walkout. Like, there's just, the pacing of these matches is pretty glacial.
Even when I went to it the one time, the pacing was really weird because they have enough time between matches that they're having, like
there's downtime.
there's, like, audience events. Like, they're like, they do audience things. Like,
There's too much downtime as a broadcast event. There either needs to be more filler, but really it's like, it's a grappling card, man. It shouldn't be 4.5 hours. We've said it for a couple of years.
or if you're going to do it that way, actually make your commercials during your downtime and not during the middle of your stupid match.
Yeah. So there's that too. Well, that's a flow thing for, like, the way that Flow's broadcast interview
But Who's
works.
Number One is their event.
I get what I'm saying. You're coming into what you're complaining about is the thing where you log into Flow again.
Yeah.
The first thing it shows you is a commercial.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. It should be like you shouldn't force you. That's their interface.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have that problem on Who's Number One because it only happens when you re-log in. You're just getting screwed because it's a live event and automatically shows you a commercial regardless of where you are in the match. It just defaults for live events to show you a commercial. It's just like, it's really disgusting because I pay for it.
Because their TV app sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, their TV, I mean, all their apps are pretty bad. But
Anyway,
there's that.
we move on.
Move on. Let's talk about Fight to Win. Which 280, is it 2 or 4? No, it's 4, I think.
I don't know. His
David Garmo's arm is in front of it here. David Garmo versus Max Hansen took place this weekend. Max Hansen won that by decision. A little bit back and forth, but really it was Max Hansen like pushing more of the activity, but Garmo with bigger slams and top work. It was a very close match. 283. Hansen takes it. I think Garmo was a little upset about the decision. The referee kind of talked and went through it. Very close match. I would have loved to see a little more open up, but Hansen is able to take it. And let's see. I think that does it. Next week on the show, we are going to preview Polaris 32, the women's squads event. I think that's all we have for a recap. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We are going to preview that. Very excited for it. Team North American captain is Helena Cravar. On her team is Taylor Ellis Hilshaw, Brianna St. Marie. I got to stop saying stay. It's Saint. It is Saint. Amanda Tubby Alaquin, Lana Santiago, and Jasmine Hosha. On Team Europe, we have Fionn Davies. We have Josephine Mondag. We have Anne Svedston. We have Sulame Lowenthal. We have Margaret Cicerelli and Selma Vick. I have a I'm excited to do this preview next week because we've done a bunch of research here, and we are going to run through basically who everyone is.
So, Vic, do you know what that translates to in Icelandic?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
I think it is, yeah.
Do you know? What is it?
Is it Dick?
No.
What's the...
No. There's Reykjavik is Vic.
Town. City.
Like port.
Port.
Because Vic is the town that's the port. Reykjavik is...
I was thinking of German for gross.
Reykjavik is like, not foggy, smoky, like smoky port.
Huh.
Is what Reykjavik means.
That's cool.
And then...
So Selma Port.
So yeah,
That's kinda cool.
anytime when you go around Iceland, when I went, the only thing we realized was like there's certain words you can pick up because the words are really long.
Yes.
But Vic is port.
Oh, that's very funny.
So that was one of the... So, yeah, her last name's Port.
So excited to preview that next week. There's also some fun...
Or Harbor. Something like that. Port Harbor.
There's a bunch of fun matchups on that. I think Owen Jones is on that as well. There's some good matches, but the women's event is what we're going to mainly focus on. Again, as much as we can, we don't have bracketing for the squads events. We really don't know who is going to face who where until actually the event occurs.
I was trying to find the rules for it, too, are kind of like all over the place.
Yeah, we're going to run through all the rules next week. We're going to run through all the matchups. We're going to run through all the super fights. So it should be very fun. I love Polaris weeks because, again, Polaris events run really well, and I love the pacing of the Polaris cards. I always feel like when I sit down and watch Polaris, I enjoy and have a great time sitting down and watching Polaris because the whole event flows as a good broadcast event.
And it's going to be on
looking
Fight
forward to
Pass.
it. So on Fight Pass, the broadcast interface is very good. So that is it, Miranda. Any kind of closing thoughts on the week? Anything you got going on?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm coming back from vacation and travel and all kinds of craziness. So, I have to coach this weekend. But are you going to be at?
Yeah.
Are you at Liquid Swords?
I think I'm going to be Liquid Swords
Okay,
too. Because I got a coaching pass, but I haven't got back to my team about it because.
Who are you going to coach?
I'm going to coach probably Damon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Or Greg and I'll coach Damon.
Yeah.
But I'll probably be in everyone's corner because that's kind of I do, what I am.
You're welcome to come to our corner if you need to.
I can be a corner behind. we were hanging out with your guys at the fight.
Yeah.
When Bradley was fighting. We
Yeah.
had Nick and your guys. Danny was in the corner,
Yeah.
so we talked to them for a little bit. And it was
fun.
cool to get the teams together.
Yeah.
And
fun to
say
have
hello.
Yeah.
It's you realize fight sports. It's a very, very small world, and there's like 8 of us.
Yeah,
There's
and
just
everybody has, and especially when you get the MMA fighters that have been retired and now are in.
Yeah.
Because then they've all fought each other, and they've all like there's all weird dynamics.
So our fighter Bradley,
Yeah.
his referee has fought our coach Rob.
Really?
It's Sean Spath. That was Spath.
Oh.
So you're into a very funny world of like, yeah, man.
Oh,
There's
that's
8
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
You're into a very funny because he's a part of the commission now, and it's just very funny how small the world is of combat sports once you really get into it. And once you're here long enough, 10, 12, 15 years in.
Because Nick has a bunch of guys that are in like the UFC now that he fought back in the day.
And it's just very funny. You're like, I fought that guy like 10, when he was a 1-1 pro or a 0-1 pro. Or like amateur still.
Well, when we were at Fury, they tried to make it seem like he was really old because they were like, he fought for CFFC, 20 years ago or something, like in 2005, I think that.
Yeah.
No, 2015. I'm
10
years ago.
Yeah.
But they tried to act like, he was so much older because 10 years ago he fought for.
I was talking to I was showing a guy, we have a white belt at the gym. We have open mat last night, and so I was working a north-south choke on him.
Yeah.
And I showed it how Jeff Monson does it with like the X with the weird hand position for the finish. Yeah. And one of our other coaches was in Brian. And I was talking, I showed this, because I always ask Brian for feedback. And I was like, oh, like Jeff Monson does it. He goes, I met that guy. And he goes, I saw him do it to someone at a tournament. I was like, what tournament was it? And he's like, oh, Bud Cup. And I'm like, that was 20 years ago. That was a tournament. But then there's also a picture of of Brian in the gym next to Jeff Monson. I'm like, oh, that's the day he's talking about.
It's funny because if you're in the sport long enough, you wind up being in the same room as people and not really.
Yeah, you just realize that I interviewed Ty Rotolo when he was 16.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah.
You interviewed Gordon Ryan before he got tummy problems.
I did. I interviewed him twice.
Did you give him the tummy problems?
I might have given them. We transferred them from me to him. Except now we both have them, which isn't great. I interviewed Lachlan, interviewed Craig, and a bunch of guys that have been. And also, like a lot of those interviews now are like 6 or 7 years ago. Where it's like, oh, that was like ADCC 2019. I interviewed Orlando Sanchez back in the day, like Tex Johnson, like all those guys. And it's just cool to be around long enough to watch guys retire and kind of come into different areas of the sport. Yeah. And you realize just how small and kind of nifty the community is together. So yes, I will be at Liquid Swords, and we'll hang out in corner and get to coach all the guys out.
It'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. So anything else, Miranda?
I don't think so.
All right. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host.
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Reruns. No matter where it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.